All right, let's jump right in. If you've ever been deep in a research project, you know there's that one question that just keeps popping up. When are you actually done? Today, we're going to tackle that head on by looking at two different kinds of enough: data saturation versus thematic saturation.
And this really gets to the heart of what you could call the researcher's dilemma. It's that universal feeling of, am I there yet? It can slow down even the best laid plans.
And it all boils down to these two big questions. First, how do I know when I've gathered enough stuff? And second, once I have all that stuff, how do I know I actually get it? These are the signposts every researcher is looking for. Now, the short answer to all of this is a single word: saturation. But, and this is the important part, it's not that simple. See, hitting saturation isn't just one finish line. It's actually two totally different milestones in your journey, and knowing the difference between them is absolutely key. So let's start with the first type. And to really get this, I want you to picture yourself at a giant, sprawling buffet. This first part of the process is all about what happens as you're walking down that buffet line, plate in hand. The official term for this is data saturation. Basically, it's the point where doing one more interview or running one more survey doesn't actually teach you anything new. You're just hearing the same stories, the same facts over and over again, maybe just phrased a little differently. And that brings our buffet analogy right back into focus. Data saturation is that exact moment when you realize, hey, I've seen everything on the menu. There are no new dishes popping up. At this point, you could keep walking, but all you'd be doing is adding more of what you've already seen to your plate. So how do you know when you're there? Well, it's actually pretty simple. You don't just go on collecting forever. The trick is to build in pauses. Do a handful of interviews, then stop, take a breath, and ask yourself that really critical question. Am I hearing genuinely new things here, or is this just becoming an echo chamber of what I already know? When you start hearing those echoes, you might just be reaching that first finish line. Okay, so you've filled your plate. You've hit data saturation. But guess what? The job's not done, not even close. Now it's time to sit down at the table and actually make sense of the meal you've put together. This next stage is called thematic saturation, and this isn't about collecting new info anymore. This is all about your understanding of the information you already have. It's that point where looking at another piece of data doesn't spark a new idea or change your main takeaway. Think about it this way. Now you fully understand how all those different dishes on your plate fit together. You're not just identifying them anymore. That's potatoes, that's chicken. No, now you're seeing the relationships, the flavor profiles, how the savory plays off the sweet. You see the whole story of the meal. And a really great practical tool for this is something called a saturation grid. You can literally map out your themes and see how each new piece of data fits in. When you find that your new interviews are just slotting neatly into the boxes you've already created without making those boxes bigger or creating new ones, that's a huge sign. It means you've probably reached thematic saturation. Your story is complete. So we've got these two really distinct ideas, right? One is all about how wide you go, and the other is about how deep you go. Let's put them right next to each other and see the difference. On one hand, you have data saturation. This is all about breadth. The goal here is simple. Have I collected enough different pieces of data? Have I covered the landscape? On the other hand, you've got thematic saturation, and this one is all about depth. The goal here is to know if you've developed enough meaning. It's not just about seeing the landscape, it's about understanding it. So why does this distinction matter so much? Why split hairs? Well, it's because neither one of these is enough on its own if you want to create something truly solid. They have to work together. When it comes right down to it, any strong, compelling study needs both. You have to walk that whole buffet line to make sure you didn't miss a single dish. But you also have to sit down at that table and figure out how all those dishes come together to create a full, meaningful meal. If you skip one, your story's just not complete. And that really leaves us with one last big question to ask yourself on any project. It's easy to get caught up in just collecting, just filling the plate. But the real magic, the real value comes from telling the story of the meal. So the next time you feel like you're drowning in data, just pause and ask yourself that.